It is 1934. You are standing in a kitchen in eastern Tennessee. The stove burns coal. The windows have no storm glass. There are 7 people in this house and 43 cents in the tin on the shelf. And the woman at that stove is not afraid. She knows things. Things about food, about heat, about money, about repair. Things about what a house can do when you understand it completely. Things that took generations to build and less than 1 generation to forget. 25 of those things still work today. In your kitchen, in your house, with what you already have. Number 7 will make you look at something you walk past every single day and finally see it the way she did. Number 19 was taught in whispers between women for 3 generations until the industry that replaced it grew large enough to make the whispering stop. Stay with us. She earned this knowledge the hard way. You can have it for free. If this kind of history matters to you, hit like and subscribe before we begin. Every entry on this list was almost lost. The least we can do is make sure it reaches someone who needs it. Number 25. The Sunday cook. 1 pot, 1 day, 7 meals. In 1930s, tenant farming kitchens, a single stewing hen cost 18 cents. 18 cents, purchased on Sunday, fed a family through Friday, broth on Monday, pulled meat on Tuesday, bones cracked and boiled again for Thursday soup. Nothing left the pot until the pot had nothing left to give. You could smell it from the road. Bay leaf, rendered fat, wood smoke underneath everything. Today, a meal kit company charges $12 for 1 portioned ingredient, pre-measured, pre-washed, and delivered in packaging that goes straight to landfill. She was not being frugal. She was being precise. Frugal means going without. Precise means wasting nothing. She wasted nothing. Number 24. Bread heel savings, every heel of every loaf. Saved, never discarded. 6 heels collected in a cloth bag over 2 weeks became breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs became stuffing. Stuffing became a meal that cost nothing beyond what was already going to be thrown away. The USDA published home economics pamphlets on exactly this in 1934. Official government documentation on how not to waste bread. Think about what it means that a government had to publish that. And think about what it means that nobody publishes it anymore. Store-bought breadcrumbs today, $3.49 for crumbs in a cardboard cylinder. Made from bread that was never going to be wasted in the first place. The heel was never the problem. Forgetting what to do with it was. Number 23. The cold window pantry. Before the refrigerator became a requirement, the north-facing windowsill was the cold storage. In winter, that ledge maintained 35 to 38 degrees Fahrenheit naturally. Root vegetables kept for weeks. Milk stayed fresh. Eggs held. No electricity. No compressor. No monthly energy bill. The average American household today spends $150 a year running a refrigerator while discarding $1,600 of food annually. The USDA confirmed that figure. $1,600 gone from households running appliances specifically designed to prevent exactly that. She used the cold that was already there. We pay to create cold and then waste what we store inside it. Something went wrong somewhere between her windowsill and your kitchen. Stay with us because it gets more specific. Number 22. Clothing repair. Nights, Friday evening. Lamplight, a darning needle, and whatever thread could be salvaged. A man's work shirt in a Depression-era household was repaired an average of 11 times before retirement, and even then, retirement meant cut into rags, not thrown away. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation tracked modern garment use. Average today, 7 wearings before discard, 7 wearings against 11 repairs. The needle cost nothing. The thread was salvaged. The Friday evening existed regardless of what you did with it. What changed was not the shirt. What changed was the decision about whose responsibility the shirt's lifespan was. That decision was made for you. You were just never told when. Number 21. Rendered lard. This one will surprise you. Pork fat rendered at home, stored in a crock beside the stove, cost 5 cents per pound in 1935. It fried, it baked, it waterproofed leather, it fueled lamps when kerosene ran short. One ingredient, every application covered. Crisco launched in 1911. Procter & Gamble marketed it as pure, modern, scientific. What they did not advertise was that the vegetable shortening industry was built specifically to displace lard and capture a market worth $300 million from people who had been doing perfectly fine without it. The displacement worked. Lard vanished from most American kitchens within 2 decades. Not because it stopped working, because someone needed it to stop selling. Number 20 is where this pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Number 20, the barter ledger. In Cole County, Pennsylvania, 1931, 40% of transactions between families were non-monetary. Not informal, not approximate, documented. A cord of wood exchanged for 3 days of field work. A handwritten ledger tracking neighbor debts in labor and goods. No bank, no interest, no platform taking a percentage. Today, peer-to-peer payment apps charge 2.9% per transaction for the privilege of sending money to someone you already know. They built an entire economy inside the cash economy and ran it parallel, invisible, interest-free for years. The ledger was the infrastructure. The neighborhood was the bank. Stop here for a moment. Look at what these first 6 entries share. Every single one operates on the same structural principle. Nothing leaves the household before it has been used completely. Not the heel of the bread, not the cold outside the window, not the fat from the pork, not the labor of the neighbor, not a single cent to a middleman if the community could handle it directly. This was not survival instinct born from panic. This was a philosophy. Deliberate, practiced, refined across generations. And here is the uncomfortable part. The modern economy does not function if you operate this way. It requires the opposite. It requires that you buy the breadcrumbs instead of saving the heels, that you run the refrigerator and throw away the food inside it, that you discard the shirt after 7 wears and replace it, that you pay the platform fee instead of writing it in a ledger. Waste is not a flaw in the consumer system. For dozens of industries, waste is the product. Your waste is their revenue. She knew none of this explicitly. She just knew that nothing should leave before it was finished. And that one instinct, held consistently, was worth more than any financial advice published in the 90 years since. 19 entries remain. Pay attention to number 7. Number 19, canning by the bushel. This is the one taught in whispers. A family of 4 in rural Ohio canned 400 quarts per season. Tomatoes in August, corn in September, green beans through July. Cost per quart, 3 cents. The store-bought equivalent today, $2.19 per quart. 400 quarts. Do that math yourself. The knowledge was never written down. It lived in the hands. A grandmother teaching pressure timing by the sound of the steam. Not a thermometer, not a timer. By sound alone. That kind of knowledge transfers only through proximity, through watching, being shown, doing it wrong once, and being corrected. When that chain broke, when the generation that canned stopped teaching, and the generation that followed stopped asking, the grocery industry did not mourn. It expanded. Number 18. Gray water gardening. Dishwater, rinse water, cooking water, all of it carried by hand to the kitchen garden. The phosphates in the soap fed the soil. The warmth of the cooking water extended the growing season at the edges. A Wisconsin farm wife in 1934 documented reusing 14 gallons of household water daily this way. 14 gallons by hand. Every single day. Landscape irrigation in the American Southwest costs over $1,000 annually per household today. For water applied to soil. Identical function. Identical outcome. She carried it in a bucket. We run a metered system that bills us monthly for the same result. Number 17. Seed saving. Seeds dried on newspaper, stored in labeled envelopes, passed between neighbors at the end of every season. Variety selected for local soil, local climate, local rainfall, refined across decades by people who ate the consequences of getting it wrong. Then, in 1970, the Plant Variety Protection Act created legal ownership of seed varieties. Corporate consolidation followed. Today, 3 companies control 60% of the global seed supply. 3 companies, 60% of the seeds that feed the entire planet. She saved hers in an envelope and gave half to the woman next door. Someone decided that was too much independence to leave intact. Number 16. The sock darner. A wooden mushroom-shaped form. 12 minutes of work. 6 more months of wear. Depression-era households owned an average of 3 pairs of socks per person. 3 pairs, maintained, repaired, extended. The darning mushroom was passed as a wedding gift in some Appalachian households, not as sentiment, as equipment. The EPA estimates Americans discard 400 million pounds of textile waste annually. Clothing with use still left in it. Gone because nobody knew what to do with a needle and a wooden form anymore. The darner cost nothing to operate. It required only the knowledge of what to do with it. That knowledge is what disappeared, not the socks. Number 15. Vinegar as everything glass cleaner, weed killer, meat preservative, fabric softener, wound rinse. 1 gallon of white vinegar in 1932. 8 cents. 1 ingredient. Every application covered. The U.S. household cleaning product industry is worth $30 billion today. It emerged directly after World War II by converting surplus chemical manufacturing into domestic products, marketing each separate application as requiring its own dedicated solution. Your grandmother needed one thing. They sold you 17. They gave each one a different color bottle so you would not notice they were all solving the same problem. Number 14. The root cellar. Dug below the frost line. Maintained naturally at 32 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. No electricity, no moving parts, no bill. A family in rural Kansas stored 800 pounds of vegetables underground through the winter of 1935 to 1936. Carrots, potatoes, beets, cabbages, preserved for up to 9 months by nothing more than the stable temperature of undisturbed earth. 800 pounds through a Dust Bowl winter, using a hole in the ground. The earth was doing the work. They understood the earth well enough to let it. Number 13. The envelope system. A Pittsburgh steelworker's wife in 1931 managed a household of 6 on $22 a week. Physical envelopes, labeled groceries, rent, coal, medicine, church, emergency. money allocated on payday, 0 carried over, 0 borrowed against next week. The Federal Reserve's 2023 survey of consumer finances found that 53% of American households today operate with no written budget whatsoever. She never overspent. There was no mechanism that allowed it. The envelope was the mechanism. Simple, tactile, final. The average American now carries $7,951 in credit card debt. The envelope cost nothing. What replaced it costs considerably more. Every practice from number 25 to number 13 returns something directly to the household. Control over food, control over heat, control over money, control over the growing season, control over what gets repaired, what gets extended, what gets passed forward. The Depression did not create these instincts. It revealed them. And these families were not inventing resourcefulness under pressure. They were drawing on knowledge built carefully across generations, because the world had always been uncertain, and the only reliable unit was the household itself. What happened after the Depression ended is the part nobody discusses. Prosperity arrived, and with it came an entire architecture of products, systems, and industries built on a single premise, that you should outsource to them what you used to do yourself. That dependence, rebranded as convenience, was progress. It was profitable for them. If this video is giving you something worth keeping, subscribe. There is more where this came from, and the channel needs your support to keep finding it. 12 entries remain. Number 7 is coming. And number 12, the family account book. A ledger kept by the woman of the house. Every penny in, every penny out, every trade and debt noted in the same hand for years. A surviving ledger from a Dust Bowl family, now held at the Oklahoma Historical Society, shows 14 months of unbroken entries, including 1 week with total expenditure of 43 cents. 43 cents for an entire week. Documented. Accounted for. Not 1 cent untracked. The Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances 2022 found that 53% of American households report no budget of any kind. Not a rough one. Not a mental one. None. She knew exactly where they stood every single day. Most households today have no idea, and the distance between those two facts is not a technology problem. Number 11. Coal rationing. 1 stove. 1 heated room, everybody in it. A ton of coal in 1934 cost $9.50. Rationed carefully, it lasted 4 months. The family gathered in the kitchen by day, shared beds by night for warmth. Children did homework inches from a cast-iron door, breath visible indoors, a flannel-wrapped brick at the foot of every bed. The average U.S. household energy bill today, $2,060 annually, per the Energy Information Administration 2023. They were not cold and defeated. They were deliberate. There is a difference between suffering through something and choosing exactly how to manage it. They chose every morning. With $9.50 worth of coal and the entire winter ahead. Number 10. Medicinal herb gardens. Chamomile for sleep. Yarrow for fever. Elderberry for infection. Mullein for cough. Grown in every kitchen garden alongside the vegetables. Dried on strings from ceiling rafters through August, available through winter without a prescription, without a copay, without a waiting room. By 1950, the pharmaceutical industry had reclassified traditional plant medicine as folk remedy, a term invented not to describe these practices, but to discredit them, to create the impression that anything without a patent number was superstition. The herb knowledge transferred exclusively through women, mother to daughter, grandmother to granddaughter. When that line broke, the pharmaceutical industry was standing there ready to fill the gap at considerably higher cost. Number 9, the Community Ice Program. Ice cut from frozen ponds in January, stored in sawdust-insulated community ice houses, distributed by route through summer for 2 cents per delivery, not a luxury. A shared infrastructure built and maintained by the neighborhood itself. Everyone contributed to the cutting. Everyone accessed the storage. No single household bore the full cost alone. The individual home refrigerator replaced it entirely, by design. Each household now purchases, powers, and maintains its own cooling unit independently. The community ice house required cooperation. The refrigerator required only a purchase. One model built neighborhoods, the other built appliance sales. Number 8, flour sack clothing. By 1937, an estimated 3.5 million American children were wearing clothing made from flour sacks, not because their parents had no choice. Because cotton flour mills, responding directly to consumer pressure, began printing decorative patterns on their sacks. A 25-pound sack yielded enough fabric for a child's dress or a full set of underwear. The purchase came with a second life built into it. That was not an accident. That was design, genuine design, built around the reality of what people actually needed from the things they bought. The synthetic fabric marketing that followed World War II reframed repurposing as poverty. Wearing what you made became something to be ashamed of. That reframing was worth billions to the textile industry. It cost the consumer something harder to measure. Number 7, the icebox discipline. This is the one mentioned at the very beginning. Oldest items forward, newest items back, every time, without exception. Not a system from a book, a discipline enforced by reality. If the oldest item went bad, there was nothing to replace it. The icebox made the stakes physical. You could see exactly what was there, exactly how much, exactly what needed using first. Nothing hidden behind a door, nothing pushed to the back and forgotten. The FDA estimates 30 to 40% of the entire U.S. food supply is wasted annually. In households, running refrigerators specifically designed to prevent spoilage, full shelves, zero visibility, no discipline. She could see everything. She used everything in order. It required no technology, only the habit of looking. Walk to your refrigerator tonight, open it, look at what is pushed to the back. That is the habit that disappeared. Number 6, skill trading circles. A 1934 Federal Relief Survey of rural Georgia found that 28% of service needs in rural communities were met through informal skill exchange, entirely off the cash economy. Women meeting weekly. One cut hair, one altered clothing, one taught reading, one repaired shoes, no transaction recorded, no platform fee, no rating system, no algorithm deciding who got matched with whom. They built the network before they needed the favor. That sequence mattered. You cannot call on a community you never invested in. They understood this instinctively because the alternative, paying for every service individually, was simply not available to them. Today, the gig economy charges a platform fee for identical exchanges between people who live within walking distance of each other. Number 5, animal fat soap beef tallow, wood ash lye, 4 hours of work, 6 months of clean. One batch lasted a family of 5 through an entire winter. Cost in 1933, approximately 11 cents. The lye came from ash collected at the stove. The tallow came from the animal that had already fed them. Nothing purchased specifically, everything already present. Procter & Gamble launched synthetic detergent that same year, 1933, the year millions of American families had no soap at all. The timing was not coincidental. The market was ready because the need was desperate. They made what they needed. The factory made what it could sell. Those are not the same thing. The distance between them is worth understanding. Number 4. The Hoover blanket, named after the president with quiet, bitter irony. Newspaper layered inside clothing for warmth, used as window insulation, stuffed into wall gaps, wrapped around pipes in winter. Studies from the 1970s energy crisis confirm that layered newsprint performs comparably to low-grade fiberglass at equivalent thickness. They were not being desperate. They were applying knowledge, an understanding of insulation, of heat retention, of what materials already present in the home could be repurposed before anything needed to be purchased. The Hoover blanket was not a last resort. It was physics, applied without a textbook, without a home improvement store, without a contractor. The cold taught them what the cold required, and they listened. Stop one final time. 21 entries ago, you were standing in a kitchen in eastern Tennessee. 43 cents in the tin on the shelf. 7 people in the house. And you have now seen exactly how that household functioned, how it fed itself, heated itself, clothed itself, cleaned itself, banked itself, and medicated itself, with almost no dependence on any external system. These practices did not disappear because better alternatives arrived. Look honestly at the alternatives. $1,600 of food wasted annually, $7,000 of credit card debt, 400 million pounds of discarded clothing, 53% of households with no budget. The alternatives are not better. They are more profitable for someone else. So here is the question that none of this list can answer for you. If she could run a household of 7 on 43 cents, maintaining it, feeding it, healing it, clothing it, and with knowledge that cost her nothing to use, what exactly have 90 years of modern convenience actually given you? Think about that carefully, because the answer is not as comfortable as the question sounds. 4 entries remain. Number 3, the family account book. A ledger kept by the woman of the house. Every penny in, every penny out, every trade and debt noted in the same hand, year after year. A surviving ledger from a Dust Bowl family, held today at the Oklahoma Historical Society, shows 14 months of unbroken daily entries. 1 week records total household expenditure of 43 cents. Not estimated, not approximated, recorded in pencil. By a woman who understood that the difference between knowing and guessing was the difference between eating and not. The ledger passed to the eldest daughter, not as a keepsake, as a tool. 53% of American households today operate with no written budget of any kind, not because tracking is difficult, because nobody handed them the ledger. Number 2, never eating alone. This one is not about food. A 1935 Women's Home Companion survey found that households feeding 7 or more people spent less per capita on food than households of 2. Shared meals cost 30% less per person, reduced spoilage, created accountability, made the table a financial instrument as much as a social one. 27% of American adults now live alone, per the 2023 U.S. Census. Loneliness costs the healthcare system an estimated $6.6 billion annually, according to Cigna research. They ate together because they had to. 7 people, mismatched chairs, 1 communal pot. onto a table that held the household together by the simple arithmetic of shared cost. And it turned out that was exactly the right reason. Number 1. Make do. The Library of Congress Federal Writers Project collected oral histories between 1936 and 1940. 2,300 individual references to the phrase make do. Across different states, different communities, different circumstances, the same 2 words repeated across thousands of American lives as a daily operating principle, not a hardship, a habit. Before purchasing, what do I already have? Before discarding, what can this still do? Before asking for help, what do I already know how to make? 3 questions: no product required, no subscription, no delivery window. The consumer economy runs on the opposite question. It needs you to ask what you should buy, not what you already have. The moment you start asking the second question instead of the first, entire industries lose their hold on you. That is not an accident. That is the design. They did not survive the Depression because conditions improved. They survived because they had already built lives that did not require permission from any system to function. That is what was lost, and it is exactly what this list was always about. This week, pick one. 1 entry, 7 days, no purchase required. Save the bread heels. Move the oldest food forward. Write down every cent you spend. Mend something instead of replacing it. Just one. Then come back here and tell us which one you chose and what happened. If this video gave you something worth keeping, subscribe. Share it with someone who would recognize these practices from their own grandmother's kitchen. Like it, so the algorithm shows it to people who need it. Because your grandmother would not be surprised by any of this. She would not be impressed by the problem either. She would hand you a cloth bag and tell you to start with the heels. The question is whether you are ready to start.